Our Bible word is Acts 17, verses 26 to 27. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their preappointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord, in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So this is Paul. He's in Athens. And our current textual unit is Acts 17, verses 16 to 34. That is where Paul is proclaiming the unknown God in Athens. So Paul was on his second missionary journey. This is around the year 50 AD. He was in northern Greece, in Macedonia, and he visited places like Philippi and Thessalonica, and eventually he went south. And now he came to Athens. And of course, Athens, that's the center of Greek culture, of Greek philosophy, Greek literature, rhetoric, architecture. This is where all the bigwigs and all the clever people are of the ancient world. So here is Paul, this Jewish missionary apostle, and he brings this message of a resurrection and of a Jewish savior of the world that would have been very strange to the average Greek person. So Luke describes that Paul came to Athens and he spoke in the synagogues, and also he spoke to people in the marketplace, whomever he happened to meet. And then there were Epicureans and Stoics. They were philosophers who heard Paul speaking. And now they're thinking, what's this man saying? And they said, well, he's preaching foreign gods. And this is exactly the same accusation that was leveled against Socrates. And Socrates was the famous Greek philosopher that lived around 470 to 399 BC. And he was also charged of preaching foreign gods, and he was put on trial and sentenced to death. So yeah, Paul was also in Athens, and Luke presents him as a new Socrates of sorts, because he's also preaching foreign gods. And the scene is actually hostile, because these Epicureans and Stoic philosophers, they grab Paul and they take him to the Areopagus. It means the hill of Ares. And it actually referred to the Athenian Council. And they supervised education and visiting teachers, and they also advised on ethical, cultural, and religious matters. They came together on the Areopagus, or at the foot of the hill, which is one hill there in Athens. That's where they met, or this council. So now, yeah, Paul must explain himself. What's his teaching that he's bringing? Because, he does so without the approval and authority of the Athenian Council. Because, of course, Paul walked through the city. Before that, he also noticed all the statues. Some of them were quite obscene, of the gods and deities they worshipped. And he also saw this altar with an inscription to the unknown God. And now, this for Paul also gave him an entry to communicate the gospel to them. And he says, now I'm going to preach this unknown God to you, which is the true God of all of creation, etc. Now, if we go to verses 24, Paul says there, God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands. Nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. So in Athens there would have been many temples, and the normal procedure was, if you introduced a god to Athens, you had to purchase a piece of land, you had to build a temple for this god, and also bring sacrifices. That's now the proper worship. That was the common polytheism of the time. And now Paul says, well, the true God, he does not live in these things made by hands. He's not dependent on us for anything. It's God who gives life to everybody. He doesn't need temples. He doesn't need our service and our sacrifices, so to speak. animal sacrifices. And of course, Paul also preached against the current philosophers because, for example, the Epicureans who dragged him to the Areopagus, they didn't believe in life after death. They believed the atoms of your body dissolved and there's nothing left of you. The Stoics, they believed that everything is God. They were pantheists. And the God, or the Logos, the divine reason, works its way through all matter and people to a specific end. Everything is predetermined according to the Logos to happen this way. And the world is heading towards a conflagration of fire where the entire cosmos of the world will be destroyed by fire and then recreated, and everything will happen over again as it has done before. So you watching this, according to the Stoics, you've watched this billions of times in the past already, and you will, in new setup, you will also watch this billions of times in the future, because the cycle of the world repeats itself over and over again. And also the Platonists, they also had a school, a recognized school in Athens. They actually said, no, we must escape from the body, the physical body. And there's no resurrection. That was the common belief also. There's no resurrection from the dead. But there are also others who said there's no life after death. I mean, many tombs, there were inscriptions that said to that effect, once you die, it's finished. So yes, Paul, this Jewish missionary, he's really bringing this message of a foreign God, so to speak, about Jesus and his resurrection, but also God's purposes for mankind. And now if we come back to our Bible word, it says, and he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their preappointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord, in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So Paul is again saying there's one God, creator of the universe, and he controls the destiny of mankind, and he's positioned them wherever they may live, but with a reason so they can search for God, even grope for him. In other words, feel their way towards him. Because God does reveal himself in nature, that you can recognize, yes, there is a God. And Paul also makes connection with the people, because now he quotes Greek authors and poets, also to make common ground with them. For example, he quotes the Greek poet Epimenides of Crete, for in him we live and move and have our being. But he also quotes a 3rd century BC Stoic philosopher Aratus, for we too are his offspring. And these things suggest that there's an all-encompassing creator. So there is a little bit of it within the Greeks. Now Paul just wants to stir that idea up to its logical conclusion. Of course, they think of Paul as a babbler, as someone talking nonsense also. Because if we go back to verse 18, they say, what would this babbler like to say? And this Greek word is spermologos. This term refers to a bird that picks up seed and drops it. It's like a scavenger. It's somebody who picks up scraps of information and then communicates it in a way where it's supposed to be an authority or an authoritative way. It's a bit like reading comments on social media today. People pick up little scraps of information and now they think they give an informed opinion. So this is what they think of Paul. He's kind of a buffoon. He's this bird that picks up little piece of information and now he pretends to give something that's intellectual. Because Paul is here with the bigwigs. He's here in the heart of Athens with the philosophers, the intellectuals, the clever people that speak about important stuff. Because Luke also says that the people here in Athens, they like nothing more than to sit around the whole day, discuss things, even new things amongst themselves. But yes, Paul, he's proclaiming this Jewish message of this Jewish Messiah, one God and creator of all, resurrection from the dead, and So, of course, they would think he's a bit of a buffoon. But anyway, they will listen to him. And in the end, also, Luke says some actually followed Paul after this. But Paul is here in a hostile environment. It's not a friendly environment. He's dragged away to the Areopagus. And I mean, this is established Greek culture and intellectual tradition. And here comes Paul. Like for them, he's nobody. He's proclaiming something so strange and so silly. But here he is. He's proclaiming the message of Jesus and the resurrection. Of course, Paul is also a bit naughty because he says, observing your statutes and whatever, I can see that you are religious. But that word in Greek is also ambiguous because it can also mean superstitious. So Paul is telling them, you Greeks, you are religious, but also superstitious. Because they even have that altar to an unknown God. They want to cover all their bases. So Paul also is preaching to them, these intellectual, clever people, that their beliefs and even their philosophy, their views of God or ultimate reality or life after death is juvenile. And now God has sent His Son also, the one creator of the universe, also to judge the world. And we can summarize Paul's message in this way. There is one God who is the creator and sustainer of all. God is not part of creation. God's existence or nature is not in any way subject to human action. God is in control of human destiny. God is utterly transcendent, but also immanent to all creation, and He can be discovered and known if people wish to do so. Also, you can have a personal relationship with God, to whom you are morally accountable. When we serve a God of righteousness, God overlooked human ignorance in the past, but now He calls all human beings to have a change of heart. In other words, to repent. History is meaningful, and creation is moving towards a definitive end, to a day of judgment and salvation for the righteous. Judgment will be performed by a righteous man. That's Jesus, whom God raised from the dead. So, hearing this, Greeks would say, huh? What are you talking about? This is foreign. We don't understand it. It's strange. So some people scoffed at him, but some people also followed him. So yes, Paul, he's proclaiming the message. Yeah, in this big, powerful, influential, and intellectual capital of the ancient world, so to speak. And he's bringing this very strange and foreign message. God of Israel is the creator of all, and that He's appointed Jesus through a resurrection to judge all people. And also our Bible, it also explains God's the creator of all people. They come from one blood. So that's the story of Adam in the background. And the rest of it is that also God has positioned them in their various places, but for the purpose that they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for Him and find Him. So God is there, can be found, because like Luke says, He's not very far from each one of us.